There are some knocks you hear in your life, and you just know something's about to break. It was a gray Saturday afternoon when I heard it. 3 sharp raps against my front door, like a judge pounding his gavel before sentencing. I opened it, and there they stood, Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob, faces pale, clothes wrinkled, desperation bleeding off them like cheap cologne. I hadn't seen them in almost a year, not since the night my life went up in flames. Linda's voice cracked first. "Kyle, please, we need to talk. It's about the baby." My stomach turned. The baby. That word alone was enough to rip open scars I thought had at least started to scab over. The child wasn't mine, though at one point, I thought it could have been. Turns out, it belonged to my own cousin, Brandon. My blood. And the mother? My wife. Ashley. The woman I trusted with everything. The woman who swore on our wedding day she would love me forever. What AF *** king joke. I didn't move. I just stared at them, feeling my fists clench at my sides. Bob stepped forward, his eyes watery. "Kyle, the baby's really sick. They think it's his heart. We can't cover the medical bills." Linda wiped her nose on her sleeve, her makeup streaked and messy. We thought you might help. He's still your blood." My blood. The words echoed in my skull, hot and heavy, like coals being shoveled into a fire that was already raging inside me. They hit it. Every single one of them. My own family knew what Ashley and Brandon did, and not a soul breathed a word. They watched me walk around like a damn fool, smiling, planning a future with a woman who was slipping off her ring behind my back and crawling into my cousin's bed. And now they had the nerve to stand here, on my porch, asking for money? I should have slammed the door right in their faces. I should have turned around and poured myself a drink and let them rot. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that feels like broken glass in your mouth. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. They hesitated, probably sensing that the man standing in front of them wasn't the Kyle they used to know. That man was dead, burned to ash the moment he found out the truth. Linda shuffled in first, holding her purse to her chest like a shield. Bob followed, head bowed like a scolded dog. I led them to the living room, the same room where Ashley once curled up next to me, telling me she couldn't wait to build a family together, where she whispered promises under the blanket of night while she was already tearing us apart in the daylight. Funny how places can turn into graves for your memories. They sat down on the couch, fidgeting. Bob cleared his throat. "I know it's a lot to ask," he started, "but Brandon, he's struggling. And Ashley, well, she's not around much anymore. We're trying to raise the boy." I let that sink in. Ashley's not around much anymore. Typical. Even motherhood couldn't pin that snake down. I leaned back in my chair, studying them like bugs pinned to a board. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly, savoring every word. "You want me to foot the bill for the child my wife had with my cousin while you all lied to my face?" Linda burst into tears. "Please, Kyle. He's just a baby. He didn't choose any of this." "No, he didn't. But they did. Every last one of them made their choice when they decided to betray me." Bob dropped his head into his hands. "We're begging you." I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You think because you share a little DNA with me that I owe you something?" Neither of them answered. They just stared at me, broken and pathetic. Good, because they were about to learn what betrayal really costs. I stood up slowly and said, "You'll get your answer tomorrow, bright and early." They both looked up, hope flickering in their bloodshot eyes. I smiled again, a cruel, sharp smile. "Now get the hell out of my house." They scurried out like rats, leaving the door swinging wide open behind them. I closed it quietly, feeling the latch click into place like a lock on a coffin. Tomorrow, I would make sure they regretted every second of what they did. And it would be the start of the end of their perfect little world that I barely slept that night. I sat in the dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, replaying everything in my mind like a broken tape. Ashley's fake smiles, Brandon's smug laughter at family barbecues, the whispered conversations that stopped the moment I walked into the room. How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? I ran my hand through my hair, fists clenching over and over, jaw grinding so hard it felt like my teeth might snap. At 3:14 a.m., I made up my mind. If they wanted my help, they were going to get it, just not the way they expected. By sunrise, I was dressed and out the door, marching toward the one place that held the ugliest answers, my Aunt Linda's house. I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open, walked right in like I owned the place. Linda shrieked from the kitchen, clutching a mug to her chest like it could shield her. Kyle, what are you? Where's Brandon? I barked. She opened her mouth, probably ready to spin some pathetic lie, but the sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs cut her off. Brandon appeared at the landing, shirtless, rubbing sleep from his eyes. When he saw me, he froze. I stared at him. The cousin I grew up playing baseball with, who stood next to me at my wedding, smiling like a damn brother. The same man who later couldn't keep his filthy hands off my wife. Brandon's face went pale. Kyle, listen, man. Save it, I snapped. I'm not here for your excuses. I threw a thick envelope onto the table with a heavy thud. Both of them flinched. Linda's hands trembled as she reached for it, flipping it open. Her face collapsed in horror. Inside were copies of texts, pictures, phone logs, everything. Months of Ashley and Brandon's betrayal. Dates. Times. The secret motel rooms they thought no one knew about. Even receipts. I had spent weeks gathering it all when the truth first came out. Back then, I thought it would bring me closure. All it did was pour salt in the wound. You think I forgot? I said, my voice shaking with rage I barely kept on a leash. You think you could just show up, wave your broken family in my face, and guilt me into saving your precious little love child? Brandon stepped down slowly, hands raised like I was pointing a gun at him. Maybe I should have. Kyle. Bro, I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he stammered. Ashley, she said you weren't enough for her. She said she needed more. She came to me, man. I blinked. For a moment, the room tilted. The walls closed in. Ashley had told him I wasn't enough. After everything, after years of loving her, supporting her, believing in her, that's how she justified it? I laughed. I couldn't help it. A bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the cheap wallpaper. Linda sobbed quietly in the background, but I didn't even look at her. I was locked onto Brandon, feeling every nerve in my body buzz with the need to break something. You're right, I said finally, voice low and even. I'm not enough. He relaxed slightly. But you know what else? I continued. Neither are you. Before he could react, I stepped forward and grabbed him by the front of his shirt, slamming him against the wall so hard a picture frame crashed to the floor. You're weak, I hissed. You're AF ****** ing joke. Just like her. He didn't fight back. Maybe he knew he deserved every second of it. I let him go roughly, stepping back. You wanted to build a life on my ashes? I said, shaking my head. Enjoy it, but don't ever come near me again. I turned to Linda, who was now crumpled on the couch, tears streaming down her face. And don't you ever ask me for a damn thing again. I finished. Without another word, I walked out, slamming the door behind me so hard the house rattled. It wasn't enough. Not by a long shot. But it was a start. A rotten tree needs to be ripped up by the roots. And today, I started digging that I should have felt better after confronting Brandon and Linda. I should have felt victorious walking away from that wreck of a house. But as I drove back home, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, all I could think about was her. Ashley, the woman who used to trace lazy circles on my chest on Sunday mornings. The woman who once cried in my arms about wanting a family, my family. Lies. All of it. When I pulled into the driveway, the rage had boiled into something worse, a hollow, shaking coldness that started in my gut and spread through every inch of me. Her car was parked outside. Of course it was. I pushed open the door and found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. She didn't even look up. What the hell do you want? I said. Ashley finally glanced at me over the rim of her sunglasses, designer ones I bought her last Christmas when I still thought we had a future. She smirked. Relax. I just came to get some of my stuff. The casual tone in her voice made my blood boil. Like she wasn't the cause of every sleepless night, every broken dream. I crossed my arms, staring her down. You're not taking a damn thing unless you give me the truth. Ashley sighed dramatically, tossing her phone onto the cushion next to her. Seriously, Kyle? Still on this, she said, rolling her eyes like a spoiled brat who got caught stealing cookies. You wrecked our marriage, I said, stepping closer. You lied to me. You cheated with my own blood. And you're acting like you forgot. She stood up slowly, brushing non-existent dust off her ripped jeans. You want the truth? She said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Fine. You bored me. The words hit harder than any punch. I stared at her, searching for even a flicker of guilt. There was none. You got too predictable, she continued with a shrug. Always working late. Always coming home tired. Always so safe. I needed excitement. Brandon gave me that. She smiled, like she expected me to understand. Like betraying me was a reasonable reaction to being bored. You needed excitement? I said, voice low and dangerous. So you tore our life apart for cheap thrills with a loser who can't even hold down a job? Ashley's face twisted, and for a second, I saw a flash of the real her. Nasty, spoiled, entitled. You were never enough for me, Kyle, she snapped. I settled for you because you were convenient. Convenient. Like I was a ****ing toaster oven she picked up on sale. I took a deep breath, feeling the walls close in around me. You're pathetic, I said, stepping back. You didn't just ruin us, you ruined yourself. You'll spend the rest of your life chasing attention because deep down, you know you're nothing without it. Ashley's mouth opened like she was about to spit another venomous reply, but I held up a hand. Save it, I said. We're done here. Get your trash and get out. For once, she had no clever comeback. She grabbed a duffel bag from behind the couch, stuffed with random clothes, makeup, and whatever scraps of the life she thought she could just walk away from. As she headed for the door, she turned back one last time. You'll miss me, she said with a wicked little smirk. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. I already forgot you. The door slammed behind her, rattling the picture frames on the wall. And for the first time in months, the house was silent. Empty. Broken. But also, strangely, mine again. I sank down onto the couch, head in my hands, the weight of everything crashing down at once. Ashley wasn't just a bad chapter in my life. She was the whole damn book I should have thrown into the fire the moment I saw the first red flag. But there was no going back. There was only forward, through the ashes, through the wreckage, and into whatever came next. A few days passed. The silence in the house became both a comfort and a weapon. No more fake smiles. No more pretending. Only the truth, cold, brutal, and finally mine. But peace wasn't something my family knew how to leave alone. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the text from my mom. Family dinner Sunday. Everyone's coming. You should too. Everyone. Including them. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to disappear into the silence I had just started to get used to. But the angrier, more broken part of me knew I needed to look them all in the eye. I needed them to see exactly what they had done. So I texted back one word. Sure. Sunday came like a slow, rotting tide. I pulled up to my parents' house, the driveway already packed with familiar cars. I recognized Brandon's beat-up truck immediately. I almost turned around. Almost. Instead, I walked up the steps, pushed the door open, and stepped into a room full of traitors. There was laughter at first, casual conversations about work, about sports, about nothing that mattered. Then they saw me. The room went dead silent. My mother, Susan, rushed over, wearing that fake tight smile she always used when she was about to scold me like a child. Kyle, she said, reaching for my arm. Be nice. Tonight is about family. Family. I nearly laughed in her face. Instead, I brushed past her and made my way to the dining table. Everyone else slowly shuffled in after me. Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, Brandon, even my father, Tom, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Ashley wasn't there. Of course not. She had gotten what she wanted and vanished, like the coward she was. We sat in an awkward, tense circle while my mother brought out plates of food none of us wanted to eat. It was Bob who broke the silence. He cleared his throat and said, Kyle, we're really sorry about everything. Aunt Linda chimed in, her voice quivering. We didn't want to hurt you. Brandon stayed quiet, staring at his mashed potatoes like they might save him. I looked around the table, seeing all of them for what they really were. Spineless, selfish liars who only cared about protecting their own comfort. You all knew, I said quietly, letting the words hang heavy in the air. You all watched it happen, and you said nothing. My father shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know how to tell you. You didn't even try. I snapped, slamming my fist on the table so hard the silverware jumped. Linda burst into tears. Again. Pathetic. My mother's voice wobbled as she said, It was complicated, Kyle. Families make mistakes. Mistakes. I barked, standing up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. A mistake is burning dinner. A A mistake is forgetting a birthday. Betrayal? That's AF *****ing choice. Everyone flinched. Good. I needed them to feel even a fraction of the hell I had been living in. You protected them. I spat, pointing at Linda and Bob like they were criminals on trial. You chose them over me. Over your own damn son. The table sat frozen, every pair of eyes avoiding mine. Cowards. I leaned down, gripping the back of my chair. Don't worry, I said, my voice low and sharp. You won't have to deal with me anymore. I'm done with all of you. Linda wailed louder. Bob put his head in his hands. Brandon finally looked up, his face twisted in something between shame and anger. You think you're better than us? He muttered. No, I said, smiling coldly. I'm just not a liar. Without waiting for another word, I turned on my heel and walked out the front door. The last thing I heard was my mother's broken voice calling my name, begging me to come back. But I didn't. I didn't even look over my shoulder. They had already buried the family I thought I belonged to. I was just giving them the funeral they deserved. After walking out of that house, I didn't drive home. I drove nowhere. I just sat behind the wheel, staring blankly at the road ahead, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me to this world. Betrayed by my wife. Betrayed by my blood. Betrayed by my own damn parents. It would have been easier if they hated me. But they didn't. They just didn't respect me. And somehow, that was worse. I finally pulled into an empty parking lot outside a rundown diner. The neon sign flickered like it was barely alive, like me. I grabbed a booth by the window, ordered black coffee, and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Brandon's Facebook page. His life was crumbling. No job. No future. A sick child he wasn't man enough to take care of. And yet, somehow, he still posted stupid motivational quotes like, "Family is everything." Family. The word made me want to put my fist through the table. I wasn't about to let them think they won. No. They needed to feel what betrayal tasted like. So I started planning. First, I reached out to a lawyer I knew, Mr. Jacobs, the kind of shark who could smell blood from a mile away. I explained everything. The marriage. The affair. The cover-up. Sounds like we have grounds for a serious lawsuit, he said, tapping his pen against the table thoughtfully. Alienation of affection, emotional damages, not to mention the fraud if they used your assets to support the affair. Fraud. The word was music to my ears. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Let's burn them to the ground, I said. Jacobs grinned. Good, he said. Because if you really want to make them pay, we'll need to hit them where it hurts the most, their money. Brandon didn't have much, but his parents did. They owned several rental properties. A comfortable little empire. Perfect. I spent the next week gathering evidence, receipts, messages, Ashley's credit card statements that tied Brandon to nights out, motels, gifts. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. No calls. No messages. Nothing to warn them. Let them believe I was licking my wounds somewhere, too broken to fight back. It made the trap even sweeter. But there was something else I needed to do, something personal. One night, I drove past the house Ashley had moved into, a tiny rental a few towns over. Lights on, music blaring. I parked across the street, watching. Through the window, I saw her, dancing in the living room in barely their shorts, holding a wine glass, laughing with some random guy I didn't recognize. She wasn't grieving. She wasn't broken. She was celebrating. Celebrating the wreckage she left behind. I should have felt anger. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a cold, clear certainty. She was already destroying herself. I didn't need to lift a finger. But Brandon and his parents? They still thought they had won. And that's where they were dead wrong. The next morning, I met Jacobs again. He had already drawn up the lawsuit paperwork, thick enough to crush a man's spirit just by looking at it. Ready to serve them? He asked, sliding the documents across the table. I stared at the manila folder, feeling a slow grin spread across my face. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. I signed without hesitation. It was more than just revenge. It was justice. They thought they had buried me. They forgot. I'm the one who knows how to dig. And now, it was my turn to make them choke on the dirt. The day they got served was beautiful, in the ugliest way. It was a crisp Saturday morning when the process server knocked on Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob's door. I parked a few houses down, windows cracked, engine idling, watching from a distance. Linda opened the door first. I could see it from here, the confused smile, the polite nod as she accepted the papers. Then I saw the change. Her face drained white. Her mouth fell open. The papers trembled in her hands like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Bob came to the door next, peeking over her shoulder. And when he read the first few lines, he ripped the papers from her grasp and started shouting so loud, I could hear it even from my car. I just leaned back against the seat and smiled. It was better than I imagined. They thought betrayal was a secret, a poison they could tuck away. They thought they could ruin me and walk away without a scratch. Wrong. My lawyer hit them hard. Fraud charges, damages for emotional distress, alienation of affection claims. Every dirty little piece of their betrayal was now public record. Their reputation in town, the perfect family, the kind landlords, the ones always posting fake smiles on Facebook, crumbled like wet paper. Calls started coming in that afternoon. My mother first. She left 6 voicemails in a row, each one more desperate than the last. Kyle, sweetheart, please call me back. We didn't mean for any of this to happen. This lawsuit will ruin your aunt and uncle. Please, think about the family. The family. The same one that watched me get gutted alive and clapped for the ones holding the knife. No thanks. Then Bob himself called. He didn't even bother pretending to be polite. You little s***t, he spat into the voicemail. You think you're better than us? You're gonna regret this. Family always wins. Family. That word again. It was almost funny how they kept using it like a shield, as if family was supposed to excuse betrayal. The best part? They couldn't afford to fight me properly. Their properties were leveraged to the teeth. Every court date cost them more bleeding cash. And me? I had Jacobs. A man who didn't just like winning, he liked annihilating. While they scrambled, I lived my life. I started running again, pounding the pavement at sunrise until the sweat burned the anger out of me. I spent weekends fixing up my house, the one Ashley abandoned like a dog she got tired of. New paint, new floors, new life. Piece by piece, I stripped away every reminder of her. The photos came down first, frames crashing into the trash bin with a satisfying clatter. Then her junk, the fancy blenders she never used, the designer bags she bragged about to her friends, the little trinkets she left scattered like landmines through my home. Gone. I donated it all to charity. Let her precious labels rot in the hands of strangers. Every bag thrown out felt like pulling another thorn from my skin. Freedom didn't come all at once. It came in small, brutal, beautiful steps. And just when I thought it couldn't get better, it did. A friend from town sent me a screenshot. A local Facebook group. There it was, Bob's rental business being dragged through the mud. Tenants posting pictures of black mold, broken pipes, eviction threats. All the things he hid so well for years. Now exposed. Now rotting in the light. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. Their perfect little world was collapsing under the weight of its own filth. All I had to do was sit back and watch. They thought betrayal would be the end of me. They never realized. It was just my beginning. That it was almost poetic how the world balanced itself out. While Bob and Linda's empire crumbled and Brandon's life sank deeper into the mud, I found a strange, bruised kind of peace. I didn't trust easily anymore. I didn't laugh as freely. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying dead weight on my shoulders. Then, as if life wasn't done tossing gasoline on the ashes, Ashley showed up. It was late, almost midnight, when I heard the pounding on my door. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, maybe even one of Bob's lunatic friends. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw her. Ashley, standing there like a ghost of my worst nightmares. Makeup smudged, hair wild, tears streaming down her face like cheap mascara rivers. I should have turned off the light and walked away. But anger is a funny thing. Sometimes you need to look your demons right in the eye just to remind yourself you survived. I opened the door, but only just enough to lean against the frame. She tried to throw herself at me, but I caught her by the shoulders and pushed her back. Don't even think about it, I said coldly. Kyle, please, she sobbed, voice cracking. I made a mistake. I see that now. I need you. She looked awful. Thin. Tired. Broken. Not the polished, smug woman who once danced in her living room with a wine glass, thinking she'd won the world. What happened? I asked, my voice flat. She wiped her nose on her sleeve, shaking. Brandon's a mess, she said, choking on the words. He's broke. He's using again. He doesn't even come home half the time. I almost laughed. She traded a loyal husband for a loser with empty promises. And now she was surprised? You chose him, I said, crossing my arms. You didn't trip and fall into his bed, Ashley. You chose. Her face twisted in pain. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you didn't love me enough. That old excuse again. I shook my head slowly. You didn't cheat because of what I lacked, I said, every word slicing into the night air like a blade. You cheated because of what you lacked. Ashley dropped to her knees, grabbing at my jeans like a child begging not to be punished. I'm pregnant, she whispered. The words hit me like a gut punch, not because I still loved her, but because of the disgust curling inside me. And? I asked. She looked up, desperation shining in her swollen eyes. I don't know whose it is, she confessed, sobbing harder. Please, Kyle. Help me. I can't do this alone. I stared down at her, feeling nothing. No pity. No sadness. Just a deep, endless void. You made your bed, I said coldly. Now rot in it. I slammed the door in her face without another word. Through the window, I watched her sobbing on my porch for a long time before finally stumbling back into the night. I locked the door, bolted it, and walked away without a second glance. There was a time her tears would have shattered me. Now, they just sounded like justice. Ashley had burned every bridge. And now, standing in the ruins she built with her own hands, she finally realized something too late. When you betray a good man, you don't just lose him. You lose the best life you'll ever have. Weeks passed after that night. Ashley didn't come back. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. It was like she finally understood there was nothing left to save. The lawsuit against Bob and Linda dragged on, bleeding them dry. They tried to settle quietly, but Jacobs made sure the settlement terms were public. Everyone knew now. The town whispered about them, about how their perfect little family wasn't perfect at all, just a house of cards rotted from the inside. And me? I wasn't the same man anymore. I wasn't the naive, trusting fool who believed that loyalty would always be returned. I wasn't the man who bent over backward to make everyone else comfortable while I bled inside. I was harder now, sharper, but somehow still alive. One evening, I sat on my back porch, staring out over the small patch of land behind my house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent oranges and blood-red streaks. It felt fitting. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. For the first time in months, it didn't feel heavy. It just felt clean. This was what survival looked like. Not smiling through the pain, not pretending everything was okay, but dragging yourself through hell and coming out the other side burned, bruised, but still standing. Sometimes standing was enough. I thought about Ashley sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a strange, cold indifference. She had gambled her future away for cheap attention. She thought the grass was greener somewhere else. What she found instead was a desert. And Brandon? Last I heard, he was living out of his truck, bouncing from job to job, dragging his mess of a life behind him like a busted trailer. They got exactly what they deserved. Karma wasn't a myth. It was a slow, brutal storm that never forgot its debts. As for me, I started rebuilding, piece by broken piece. I took trips by myself. I picked up old hobbies I had abandoned for her, photography, hiking, woodwork. Things that reminded me that life wasn't just about surviving betrayal. It was about rediscovering who the hell you were without someone else's lies weighing you down. I met new people, slowly, cautiously, built new connections, not out of desperation, but from a place of knowing my own worth. I wasn't bitter. I was better. And if there's one thing this entire nightmare taught me, it's this. Never let loyalty blind you. Love is a gift, not a leash. Trust is earned, not owed. And sometimes the people who swear they'd die for you are the first to bury the knife in your back the second you turn around. But here's the beautiful part. Betrayal doesn't define you. It doesn't own you. It only reveals them. Their character. Their rot. Their emptiness. The day I let go of the rage, the hurt, the endless loop of why me, was the day I got my life back. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need apologies. Their downfall was their own making. I was already living the greatest revenge there was. Freedom. True, brutal, beautiful freedom. And if anyone reading this ever finds themselves standing where I once stood, broken, alone, betrayed, remember this. You are not their mistakes. You are not their lies. You are the fire that will burn brighter than the ashes they left behind. Stand up, walk away, and build something so damn strong they choke on the dust of your success. That's exactly what I did. And I wouldn't trade that strength for anything in the world. Not even for the love I thought I lost. Because in the end, I didn't lose. I won. I just didn't know it yet. I was sitting at the family table, thinking it was just another boring dinner, until my cousin stood up, raised his glass, and announced, "I'm engaged to Jason's wife." Everyone laughed. My own mother clapped, leaned over, and whispered, "Finally, my loser son is getting what he deserves." And then Ava, my wife, threw divorce papers into my lap like trash. That's the moment I realized. Everyone at that table had been laughing behind my back for months. I didn't even react at first. My brain just blanked out. I could feel the blood draining from my face, my hands going cold, but my body stayed frozen, locked in some sick, twisted dream. Ava didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She sat there smiling, clinking glasses with my cousin Tyler like she hadn't just gutted me in front of my whole family. I stared down at the divorce papers, my name already typed neatly at the top, just waiting for my signature. It hit me then. This wasn't a decision made overnight. This was planned, scripted, probably rehearsed 100 times behind closed doors while I was out working, paying bills, being the idiot who thought he was building a life with someone. The rest of the family? They didn't look shocked. No gasps, no angry shouts. Just grins. Like they'd been sitting on a juicy secret for months, barely able to contain their laughter until the big show. Even my dad, who usually stayed quiet, gave Tyler a nod of approval. And me? I felt like the punchline to a joke I didn't even know I was in. Ava leaned in close, her voice low so only I could hear, her breath smelling of expensive champagne. "You're just not man enough, Jason," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Tyler knows how to take care of me, in ways you never could." I don't know what kept me from flipping that entire table. Maybe pride. Maybe pure, stunned heartbreak. Or maybe it was the tiny flicker of realization growing inside me that I wasn't surrounded by family anymore, just snakes wearing familiar faces. Without saying a word, I picked up the pen lying next to the papers. My hand shook, but not from fear. From rage. From the kind of betrayal that carves itself into your bones. I signed my name slowly, deliberately, and slid the papers back across the table. They cheered. They actually cheered. It took everything inside me to push back the burning in my chest, to keep my face blank, to not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I stood up, tucked my chair in like it was just any other dinner, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. The second I hit the cold night air, my legs almost gave out. I leaned against a lamppost, breathing hard, trying to figure out when exactly my life had turned into a bad reality show. I thought about every stupid late night waiting for Ava to come home from yoga. Every dumb time I blamed myself for feeling paranoid. Every excuse she fed me, every lie that I swallowed because I trusted her. She wasn't just cheating on me with Tyler. She was erasing me, dismantling the life we built and replacing it with some shiny, cruel fairy tale where I was the villain and Tyler was the prize. I could have walked away forever right then. Cut them all off. Changed my number, packed my things, disappeared. But fate wasn't done screwing with me yet. Because a week later, just when I thought I could start crawling out of the wreckage, they showed up at my office. All of them. Ava, Tyler, my mother, her sister Melissa, even Rick, the drunk uncle nobody even liked. They were smiling, carrying a cheap grocery store cake that said, "Family Forever," in smudge pink icing. Ava stepped forward like nothing had ever happened, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "Jason," she said, flashing that fake innocent smile. "We're one blood. We have to stick together. One blood. The same blood that humiliated me, betrayed me, mocked me." I looked at the cake, at their stupid, hopeful faces, and something inside me snapped. This time, I wasn't walking away quietly. I didn't invite them in. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, staring at them in the doorway of my office, the cake drooping in Ava's hands like it knew it didn't belong there. Tyler looked nervous, his arm slung awkwardly around Ava's waist, trying to play the role of the victorious knight. Melissa's lipstick was smudged. Rick smelled like he had started drinking at breakfast. And my mother, the woman who used to wipe my scrapes and tell me I could do anything, stood there smiling like she was proud of what they'd done. I stepped aside and let them in. Not because they deserved it. Because I needed to hear them say it out loud. Needed to watch them squirm when they realized I wasn't the same fool they ambushed at that dinner. They filed in awkwardly, setting the cake down on my desk like it was some holy offering. Ava was the first to speak, her voice syrupy sweet. "Jason, we know you're hurt," she said, reaching out like she was about to touch my arm. I pulled away before she could. "But we're family. Blood is blood. We all make mistakes, right?" Mistakes. She called what they did a mistake, like she accidentally hit reply all on an email, not systematically destroyed my life. Tyler cleared his throat. We just want you to know, there's no hard feelings, man. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It ripped out of me, cold and broken and ugly. No hard feelings? You think I'm upset because of her? I said, my voice low and shaking. Ava stiffened. I could see the little twitch in her jaw. She hated not being the center of attention. No, I continued, my eyes sweeping across the room, daring any of them to look at me. I'm upset because I wasted so many years thinking any of you actually gave a damn about me. Melissa snorted, trying to whisper something to Rick, but I caught it. He's so dramatic. I slammed my fist on the desk, rattling the cake. Shut up, I snapped, my voice slicing through the room. Melissa jumped. Ava's eyes widened. For once, they weren't smirking. Good. You want to talk about family? I said, stepping closer to Ava. She shrank back slightly, the first real sign of fear. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't stab you in the back and then show up a week later asking for favors. Ava opened her mouth, probably to spin some tale about love or destiny or whatever other garbage she told herself at night. I didn't let her. You're not my wife anymore, I said, my voice deadly calm. You're not my blood. You're not anything to me. I turned to my mother. Her face was red now, her smug smile wiped clean. And you, I said, my voice cold. You taught me to believe in loyalty. In family. You taught me to trust the people closest to me. And you were the first one to laugh when they tore me apart. No one spoke. No one even breathed. I grabbed the cake, lifted it up, and slammed it into the trash can so hard the plastic container shattered. You want my help? I said, stepping back, looking at the pathetic pile of ruined icing and crumpled box. There it is. That's what you're worth to me. Ava's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Tyler muttered something under his breath, but no one moved. No one knew what to say. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and pointed. Get out. For once, they listened. They filed out, heads down, the great family alliance crumbling in the hallway. And I stood there, heart pounding, the air crackling with the weight of everything they tried and failed to take from me. I thought that would be the end. I thought after throwing them out, I could finally start healing. I was wrong. They weren't done yet. The silence after they left was worse than any screaming match could have been. It sat in the corners of the room, heavy and poisonous, wrapping itself around me like smoke from a fire I didn't start but was still expected to put out. I sat down at my desk, staring at the wreckage of that stupid cake still dripping down the inside of the trash can. Family forever, what a joke. I should have felt powerful after kicking them out. Victorious even. But all I felt was empty. Like someone had carved a hole through the center of my chest and left me to bleed out in slow motion. How did it get this bad? I thought about all the years with Ava. The holidays. The birthdays. The night she'd curl up against me and swear I was the only man who ever really understood her. Lies. All of it. Every touch, every smile, every whispered promise had been a lie. I kept seeing Tyler's hand around her waist. My cousin. The kid I used to teach how to ride a bike. The kid I used to sneak beers with behind Uncle Rick's shed when we were teenagers. He looked proud of himself. Like he had beaten me at some competition I didn't even know we were having. And my mother. God, my own mother. The way she clapped when Ava threw those papers at me. It wasn't just Ava and Tyler. It was the people who were supposed to be my roots, my foundation. They had hacked me apart like I was nothing. I buried my face in my hands. My body shook, not from sadness anymore, from rage. Hot, violent, searing rage. I had been loyal to people who would have sold me for scraps. I had defended them, protected them. Ava could have told me she needed time, space, anything, and I would have given it to her. But instead, she chose public humiliation. She chose to twist the knife where everyone could watch. And it wasn't just about cheating. It was about power, control, erasing me like I was an old mistake they were embarrassed to admit they made. For hours, I sat there. The office emptied out around me. Phones stopped ringing. Lights dimmed. But I stayed frozen, replaying everything over and over in my head until even the memories started to rot. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. Our house felt haunted. Her perfume still clung to the sheets. Her hairbrush still sat on the counter. Her stupid coffee mug with the world's best wife slogan still sat in the sink. I should have packed everything she owned into garbage bags and thrown them onto the lawn. I should have burned her wedding dress in the backyard. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I wandered from room to room like a ghost, touching the life we built together and realizing none of it was real. When I reached the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over her name in my contacts. Delete it, I thought. Erase her like she erased you. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I scrolled through old texts, old pictures, the vacations where she smiled like I was the center of her world, the Sunday mornings we spent in bed, wrapped up in each other, laughing about nothing, the anniversary gifts she pretended to love. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall, but I didn't. Instead, I let the poison run its course. I needed to feel it. Every ounce of betrayal, every fake kiss, every moment she was probably thinking about Tyler while lying next to me. Because if I didn't feel it, if I didn't burn through it, I knew I'd never be able to move past it. And deep down, a darker thought started to take root. If they thought they could ruin me and walk away smiling. They hadn't seen anything yet.by morning. Something inside me had hardened. The sadness was still there, sure, but it was buried under something sharper now. A steel kind of anger. Not the wild, screaming kind, the cold, focused kind that waits, that plans. I wasn't going to be their punchline anymore. If they wanted to turn me into the villain, I'd show them what a real villain looked like. First, I needed to know everything. Every dirty little secret. Because people like Ava and Tyler, they always had skeletons. They just got too arrogant to hide them properly. I started with Ava's laptop. She hadn't bothered to change her passwords, probably thought I was too broken to even try. Big mistake. In less than 10 minutes, I was inside her email. And what I found made my blood run colder than anything that happened at that dinner. Dozens of messages between her and Tyler. Planning. Plotting. Not just hooking up behind my back. No, that would have been too merciful. They were scheming to take everything from me. My half of the family business. My investments. Even the damn house. Once he signs the papers, it's all ours, Tyler wrote in one email, attaching a copy of a fake post-nup agreement he was trying to convince me I'd signed a year ago. Ava's reply? Don't worry, babe. He's too stupid to fight back. Always has been. Let him think he's walking away free. Meanwhile, we'll be cashing in. Reading it felt like someone poured acid straight into my veins. Every affectionate word she ever said to me. Every fake smile. Every time she told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. Lies. Calculated, cold lies. I closed the laptop slowly, taking deep breaths. There was no going back now. No forgiveness. No second chances. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight them in court like they expected. I was going to destroy them quietly. Starting with Tyler. Because Ava might have been the face of the betrayal, but Tyler, my own blood, was the architect. And blood, as they love to remind me, sticks together. I spent the next 2 days gathering everything I could. Emails, bank records, messages, all the proof I needed to show that they didn't just cheat, they committed fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. And I wasn't planning to go to the police just yet. No, that would be too easy, too public, too messy. I had something better in mind. See, Tyler had just gotten a big promotion at his company, a job he bragged about nonstop on social media. Turns out, that company had very strict policies about personal misconduct and ethical violations. All it would take was one anonymous packet of evidence sent to their HR department, and his career would go up in flames overnight. And Ava? She had just started a small online boutique selling ethical fashion, all funded with the money she skimmed off our joint accounts. One tip to the right influencers about her financial gray areas, and her entire reputation would crash before she could even launch. I wasn't going to scream at them. I wasn't going to key their cars or post angry rants on Facebook. I was going to hit them where it really hurt. Their status, their image, their future. Because people like Ava and Tyler didn't feel shame about betraying you. They only felt shame when they got caught. When the whole world turned its back on them the way they turned theirs on me. And trust me, I was going to make sure everyone saw it happen. By Friday morning, the trap was set. It didn't take much. A few emails, a few anonymous packages sent from a coffee shop Wi-Fi, so they couldn't trace it back to me. Copies of Ava and Tyler's conversations. Screenshots of bank transfers. Screenshots of Ava bragging to Melissa about bleeding Jason dry without him even noticing. It was like dropping a match into a forest already soaked in gasoline. The first explosion hit Tyler. I was sitting at a little diner across the street from his office, sipping black coffee, when I saw him storm out of the building. His face was beet red, his tie flapping in the wind. 2 security guards followed him, one holding a cardboard box filled with what I could only assume were the sad leftovers of his career. Fired. No pension. No recommendations. Just a dead end and a long walk home. I smiled into my coffee. Not a big smile. Just enough. But I wasn't done. By Saturday, Ava's boutique was on fire, not literally, but close enough. A few carefully placed tips to some influencers about her shady finances, paired with screenshots of her laughing about exploiting dumb rich guys, and the outrage machine kicked in like clockwork. Her Instagram went from pictures of sunsets and faux inspirational quotes to thousands of angry comments. Hashtag fraud queen. Hashtag karma came early. Hashtag fake ethics. Sponsors pulled out. Her PayPal got frozen. Her brand partnerships dropped her like a bad habit. By Sunday, she posted a weepy Instagram story, begging her community for forgiveness, claiming she was misunderstood and attacked by haters. I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. The internet did the rest. But it wasn't just about watching them crash. It was about what came after. Sunday night, around 11 p.m., I heard the knock on my door. I already knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. Ava. She looked like hell. Eyes swollen from crying. Hair messy. Clothes wrinkled and cheap, a far cry from the designer outfits she used to strut around in. Jason, she whispered as soon as I opened the door. Please. I made mistakes, but we're still family. We're still part of each other's lives, right? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, staring down at her like she was a stranger begging for spare change. It was almost funny how fast they ran back the second their shiny new lives fell apart. No, I said simply. No, Ava. We're not family. We're not even the same species anymore. She dropped to her knees, grabbing at my jeans like some bad scene out of a soap opera. Please, Jason. Please. I have nothing left. Tyler's blaming me for everything. My accounts are frozen. I can't even pay my rent. I gently pulled my leg away, like you would with something disgusting stuck to your shoe. You chose this, I said, voice calm. Remember? You and Tyler. Remember all those nights laughing at me behind my back? Planning how you were going to cash in on me. Tears streaked down her face. I didn't mean it. I thought you wouldn't fight back. That made me laugh. Not the broken kind from before. A real, deep laugh that came from somewhere solid. You thought wrong. I stepped back into the house and started closing the door. Jason, please, she screamed, pounding her fist on the door. Please. I'll do anything. I hesitated for half a second, just enough for her to hope. Then I slammed the door in her face. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled, really smiled. Because some people only learn when they lose everything. And Ava had just graduated with honors. For the first time in months, my house felt like mine again. No more Ava's perfume clinging to the air. No more fake love notes stuffed in drawers, pretending to mean something. No more ghosts haunting every corner. It was just me, silence, and the wide open space of starting over. And strangely enough, I wasn't afraid. I was relieved. Some nights I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sun bleed out behind the rooftops, and realized they did me a favor. They ripped off the mask. They showed me who they were. And without them, I was lighter, stronger, better. I started sleeping through the night again, eating real meals instead of living off gas station sandwiches and bitter coffee. Even work got better, sharper, cleaner, more focused. People noticed. Clients started calling me personally. New deals started coming in. It's funny how when you cut the parasites out of your life, everything else begins to heal too. I even started hitting the gym again, something I hadn't done seriously in years. Every rep, every drop of sweat, was a reminder I was rebuilding, brick by brick, from the ground up. Not for revenge. Not for anyone else. For me. But just when I thought the storm was finally over, fate knocked on my door again, this time in a suit. It was a Wednesday morning. Clear skies. Good coffee. I was feeling almost human again. Then I heard the doorbell. Standing there was a man in his mid-40s. Sharp jawline, colder eyes. He introduced himself as Detective Harris. Flashed a badge. Asked if he could come in. My stomach twisted, but I stepped aside. He sat on the edge of the couch, flipping open a small notebook. There was a weird heaviness about him, like he wasn't just here for a friendly chat. Mr. Cole, he said, glancing up at me. This is about your cousin, Tyler. My hands tightened into fists without even thinking. What about him? Harris studied me for a long second, like he was weighing how much to say. Then he spoke. Tyler's in some serious trouble. And your name came up. My heart slammed against my ribs. What kind of trouble? The detective's voice was calm, almost bored. Fraud, embezzlement, blackmail, and something that might touch on conspiracy to commit identity theft. I sat back hard, the couch creaking under me. I shouldn't have been surprised. Tyler always was a cockroach, but hearing it from a cop made it real in a way my revenge emails never did. He claims, Harris continued, that you were aware of some of his activities, that you might have even helped. I barked out a laugh, bitter, humorless. Helped? I said. I didn't even know he was capable of spelling embezzlement without autocorrect. The detective cracked a smile but didn't laugh. Yeah, that's what we thought too. We're not here to arrest you, Mr. Cole. Just asking questions. Questions. Always more questions. Always more fallout from a disaster I never asked for. I told Harris everything. The betrayal. The emails. The fake documents. I even showed him the screenshots still saved on my backup drive. His face stayed neutral, but I could tell it wasn't the first story like mine he'd heard. Before he left, he stood in the doorway, hesitating for a second. Off the record, he said, lowering his voice, you did the right thing. Cleaning house. People like that, they only understand consequences. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door, realizing the war wasn't entirely over. There would be more fallout, more whispers. But I was ready now, because I finally understood the truth. Family isn't blood. Family is loyalty. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is burn it all down and build something better. The days after Detective Harris's visit felt strange, like I was living between two worlds. One part of me was free, lighter than I'd been in years. The other part knew there were still embers smoldering under the wreckage. And if I wasn't careful, they could catch fire again. I didn't hear anything more from the police. No surprise visits. No late-night calls. It seemed like Tyler's pathetic attempt to throw me under the bus didn't stick. Maybe because the evidence against him was too heavy. Maybe because the truth had finally started working in my favor. Meanwhile, news about Tyler and Ava kept trickling in. Tyler's accounts were frozen. His face was plastered across local news sites under headlines like Family Fraud Scandal and Cousin Betrayal Ends Career. Ava's boutique officially shut down, drowning in lawsuits and refund claims she couldn't pay. She posted a teary-eyed video begging for donations to rebuild her life, but the only thing she got was a comment section full of laughing emojis and serves you right messages. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Not because I forgave them, hell no, but because they weren't worth another ounce of my energy. They weren't worth me. Instead, I focused on rebuilding something better, something real. I started spending time with people who didn't expect me to fail. Old friends I'd lost touch with because Ava didn't like their energy. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned years ago, boxing, photography, hiking. I took a trip by myself for the first time in my life. No plans. No one waiting at home to poison my peace. Just me, a beat-up duffel bag, and the open road. And you know what? It was beautiful. It was raw. It was mine. I learned things too. Brutal things. Lessons that left scars but also made me stronger than I ever thought possible. Lesson 1. If someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses for them. Don't try to love them harder. Don't think loyalty will change betrayal. Lesson 2. Blood means nothing without respect. You can share DNA with someone and still have them be your worst enemy. Loyalty is earned, not inherited. Lesson 3. Never let betrayal turn you bitter. Let it turn you better. Smarter. Stronger. But never smaller. Some nights, I still felt the old anger creep in. Still heard Ava's fake little giggle. Still saw Tyler's smug grin across the dinner table as he announced his engagement to my wife. But now, instead of rage, I felt something else. Pity. Because they thought they won. They thought betraying me would make them powerful. All they really did was set themselves on fire and invite the whole world to watch them burn. And me? I didn't just survive. I rebuilt. Brick by bloody brick. They took my past. Fine. They can keep it. Because I'm too busy building a future so bright they'll need shades just to look in my direction. And if by some miracle Ava or Tyler ever find the courage to crawl back again, pleading, crying, begging for help, I'll know exactly what to say. Nothing. I'll close the door the same way I closed that chapter of my life. Without a word. Without a second thought. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's silent. It's living so well that the people who tried to bury you have no choice but to choke on the dust you leave behind. I'm not broken anymore. I'm not the sad idiot sitting at a dinner table getting blindsided by betrayal. I'm something new, something sharper, something they'll never get close to again. And for the first time in a long time, I'm finally free. You're a disgrace. Don't embarrass us. That's what my wife, Madison, hissed into my ear before walking into her father's retirement party, like she didn't just gut me with those words. She said it with a smile on her face, like she was reminding me to take out the trash, not telling me I was beneath her in front of her high society family. I wasn't even supposed to be there. She banned me a week before. Said her dad's business crowd was too uptight, that I didn't understand etiquette. Like I hadn't stood by her side when she was broke and bartending on weekends, scraping by on tips. Now that her old man was finally retiring from his real estate empire, she was suddenly ashamed of me. Said I should sit this one out and respect her family's wishes. But something in my gut told me to go. So I put on my best navy blazer, the one she said made me look like a wannabe, and showed up uninvited. The event was at the Hilton downtown, ballroom lit like it was the damn Oscars, classical quartet in the corner, champagne flowing like tap water. Madison looked like a page from a bridal catalog, strappy dress, heels taller than my trust in her, fake smile glued to her face. Her mom greeted me like she'd just seen a cockroach. And then came the moment. Her dad's business partner, George Coleman, gray hair, sharp suit, the kind of guy who measures self-worth in stock options, walked over to us. The room quieted. Everyone stared like I'd just walked into a church naked. He looked right at me. "Good to see you, sir," he said, shaking my hand firmly. The air froze. Madison's face collapsed. Her champagne flute trembled slightly in her hand. Her mother blinked like someone had pulled the curtain back on The Wizard of Oz. A couple of her cousins glanced at each other nervously. George looked confused, glanced at Madison, then back at me. "Why wouldn't it be good to see you? Heard you've been working on that veterans housing initiative. That's real work." I muttered a quiet thank you, trying to hide the twitch in my jaw. Madison squeezed my arm hard, her nails digging into my skin. "Excuse us," she muttered to George, yanking me toward a side corridor by the restrooms. Once we were alone, she exploded. "What the hell are you doing here, Noah? I told you not to come." I pulled my arm away. "And yet your dad's business partner just welcomed me like I belonged here." She was fuming. "You don't. You embarrass me. You walk around acting like you're some noble blue-collar hero. This isn't your world." "Then why did you marry me, Mads?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. "You liked this world when I was fixing up your place for free, when I was driving you to night classes, when you were nobody and I was somebody to you." She scoffed, arms crossed like she was waiting for her Uber to get her out of the conversation. "Don't start with the guilt trip. This isn't about the past. This is about you not knowing when to stay in your lane." And right then, I knew. She wasn't just embarrassed by me. She hated me. This wasn't the Madison I married. This was someone else. Cold, ruthless, practiced in cutting people open with words and walking away like nothing happened. I left the party without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. I walked through the glimmering halls of that hotel like a ghost in a tux. Outside, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, headlights off, listening to the rain tap on the windshield while the question pulsed in my head. When did she stop loving me? Or worse, did she ever? But that night wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Because a week later, I opened her laptop while she was in the shower, and my world detonated. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear to God, I didn't. But something changed in me after that party. Something quiet, but deadly, like the moment before lightning hits. I couldn't shake her words. "You embarrass me." That wasn't frustration. That was contempt. That was the kind of thing you say to someone you wish you'd never married. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee, and her laptop was left open on the dining table. Not locked, not even minimized, just sitting there like it was meant to be seen. Her iMessages were synced to the screen, and I only glanced for a second. But a second was enough. There was a thread named Work Briefcase. I hovered over it. The last message preview showed. Last night was unreal. I can't stop thinking about it. My heartbeat punched through my ribs. I clicked it. It wasn't work. It was Cole Myers, her boss. The guy who always wore white button-downs too tight for his gym-flexed arms. The guy who mentored Madison in marketing, who sent her flowers from the team on her birthday. The guy I had shaken hands with once while he looked past me like I was the help. He'd written, "You were unbelievable. I'm still hard thinking about your mouth." My stomach turned. She replied, "Behave. My husband's downstairs." I still taste you though, winky face. I didn't breathe. I read more. Scrolled through weeks of filth and betrayal, of hotel meetups, coffee shop lies. Even one time when she said she had brunch with her mom, and instead she wrote, "Tell the front desk I'm your wife if they ask. I don't need my name showing up in records." I saw photos. I wish I could erase them from my brain. Her in that same blue dress she wore to her friend's engagement dinner, with her legs wrapped around that bastard in a hotel bed. I shut the laptop quietly. My hands were ice. My breath was shallow. She came downstairs in one of my t-shirts, hair still damp from the shower, sipping her green smoothie like nothing was wrong. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing me on the cheek. I stared at her. Her lips. The ones she used to lie. The ones she used to. She didn't notice. Or didn't care. The rest of that day, I walked around like a man who'd just watched his house burn down, but couldn't tell anyone. I kept thinking, why? Was I not enough? Was I too predictable? Too safe? Or was she always like this and I just didn't want to see it? That night, I didn't confront her. I watched her sleep. Peaceful. Dreaming of someone else's touch. And I remembered every moment she lied to me. Every, "I'm just tired," when I kissed her neck. Every, "I've got a lot of work," when I suggested a weekend away. Every time she turned her phone face down at dinner. I thought I was being paranoid. No, I was being played. The next day, I started digging deeper. Call logs. Hotel receipts. Her old texts. I even created a dummy account and messaged her as someone asking about a job opening at her firm, just to see if she'd mention him. She did. Said he was an amazing leader. I bet. But the worst part wasn't just the betrayal. It was how easily she could smile through it. Laugh at my jokes. Pretend like we were still okay. Like I was some background actor in a life she'd rewritten without telling me. So I started planning. Not revenge. Reckoning. Because Madison wanted to play dirty? She had no idea what kind of storm she'd just invited. I started keeping everything. Screenshots, copies of texts, photos, time-stamped messages, credit card records. I wasn't even sure what I'd do with them at first. I just knew I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that this wasn't some misunderstanding. Because Madison, she was the kind of woman who could burn your house down and make the firefighters apologize for the mess. 3 nights later, I came home early from work. Told her I had a late meeting, but I canceled it last minute. Just wanted to see what she did with her free time. Her car was gone. Not unusual. But I had her location. I turned it on weeks ago, back when I was still trying to convince myself we could fix things. She was at the Aldridge Hotel. She told me she was at Pilates. I didn't think. I just drove. Windows down, heart hammering like I was going to war. By the time I got there, it was almost 8 p.m. I parked across the street and watched. 10 minutes later, I saw her walk out. Hair curled, lipstick on, black leather jacket. And Cole, walking right behind her, grinning like he owned her. She kissed him, right there in the open. A soft, slow one, like she wasn't cheating, like she was already his. They got into his car. I followed them. They went to a rooftop bar downtown. I didn't go in. I just sat in my car like a coward, or maybe like a man restraining a fury that could level cities. I watched them laugh, touch, clink glasses. I watched my wife lean into him like I was 6 feet under, and she was already rewriting the past. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel hurt. I felt dangerous. When she got home that night, I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. She smelled like his cologne. She stripped quietly and crawled in beside me, sighing like her body was spent. I almost asked her if the rooftop view was nice. Instead, I waited. A few days later, her dad invited us over for dinner. Said he wanted to talk about something important. I almost bailed, but then I remembered Madison saying something about her dad wanting to revise his will. That caught my attention. We went. Her dad looked tired. Tired in the way only powerful men look when they finally realize their family is rotten. We had wine. Fake smiles. Then he pulled me aside, into his study. "Noah," he said, locking the door. "I owe you an apology. I didn't say anything. I thought you were the wrong fit for my daughter. I judged you. But now I see things a little clearer." He slid an envelope toward me. Inside, photos. Of her. Of them. Taken by a private investigator. "You're not the first person she's done this to," he said, almost ashamed. "But I hope you're the last who lets her get away with it." I couldn't breathe. I was holding photos I hadn't taken, meaning someone else had already gone through this hell before me. He poured me another drink. "Whatever you decide to do, Noah, just know you've got someone in your corner. We didn't speak the rest of the night. Madison was in a great mood on the drive home. Said her dad seemed so impressed with her tonight that maybe he was finally seeing her worth. I just nodded, hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up before her. She was still asleep, breathing softly, her face turned away from me like it always was now. I watched her for a minute, really watched her. And for the first time since everything started, I didn't feel that sharp ache in my chest. The grief was still there, but it had dulled, replaced by something colder, something focused. I got up, showered, dressed. She stirred as I was tying my shoes. "Where are you going?" she mumbled. "Meeting with your dad," I said casually. "He wants to go over some stuff for the housing project." She blinked, her brain clearly scrambling. He didn't say anything to me. I just shrugged and walked out. I didn't go to her dad's office. I went to a lawyer. I handed him the file I'd put together, screenshots, messages, timestamps, photos, everything. The guy flipped through the folder slowly, his face unreadable until he looked up at me and said, "You want war?" I didn't even blink. "No, I want a clean kill." The lawyer smirked. "You came to the right place." We spent 2 hours laying it all out. She had no prenup. Half of everything I had was technically hers, but if we could prove infidelity, and the paper trail was solid, she'd walk away with scraps. Later that evening, I set the trap. She came home in yoga pants and a messy bun, holding a smoothie she'd probably used to wash his mouth out of hers. She smiled at me like we were still in a movie about a happy couple. "Hey babe," she said, setting her keys down. "You okay?" I looked up from my laptop. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "Us." She tensed. I saw it. Barely a flicker in her jaw, but it was there. "Oh yeah?" she asked, trying to play it cool. I nodded. "I think we need a break. Time to reset. Maybe we lost track of who we were." Madison blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, you want a break?" "Yeah," I said, standing. "I'll move out tomorrow. Just for a few weeks. You can have space." "Wait. Hold on. Noah. Where's this coming from?" She tried to look concerned. "Tried. I just need time," I repeated. "You understand, right?" She hesitated, then smiled. That same polished, manipulative smile. "Of course. If that's what you need. Maybe it's for the best." She kissed me on the cheek and turned away like I was yesterday's trash. But she had no idea I'd already spoken to the landlord. The lease wasn't in her name. I paid the deposits. I paid for the furniture. Everything. The next day, I filed. My lawyers served her at work. I heard she cried in the hallway, mascara down her face, screaming at Cole for not protecting her. The news spread quickly. Her dad called me that night. Said he was proud of me for handling it with class. I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow. But I wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I walked into her office building. I wasn't there to fight or yell. I was there to return the final piece of the puzzle. I handed the receptionist a small envelope with Madison's name on it. Inside was a flash drive and a note. "You should have banned me from your life, not your father's party." I left before she came out. Later that night, my phone lit up. A call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then a message popped up. "You ruined me." I stared at the screen. No emotion. She did that to herself. That night, I slept in a new apartment with no memories on the walls. No lies in the sheets. And for the first time in months, I didn't dream of her. A few days passed and silence became my favorite sound. Madison didn't call again. No apologies. No explanations. No tearful confessions that maybe, just maybe, I was worth more than her cheap affairs and boardroom flirtations. Instead, she posted photos of herself on Instagram, new outfits, wine glasses, fake laughter with fake friends. Captions like "stronger than ever" and "blessed to let go of what holds you back." I almost laughed. She was trying to convince the world she wasn't falling apart, but I could see it. Her eyes looked dull. Her smile strained, like someone holding a match too long and pretending not to feel the burn. I didn't engage. But then I got a call from her cousin, Lauren. Sweet girl. The only one from her side who ever liked me for me. "I don't want to get in the middle of anything," she started. "But you need to know. Madison's telling everyone you cheated." My jaw clenched. "She what?" "Yeah," she whispered. "She's saying you were talking to some girl from the gym for months. That you were cold, distant, and that you were the one who broke the marriage." Of course, she flipped the script. That was Madison's magic trick. Rewrite the story, cry a little, and wait for the world to turn against you. I didn't bother defending myself. People who matter already knew the truth. And those who believed her lies? They were never worth the explanation. But then came the final hit. Cole got fired. Word slipped out that Madison was sleeping with him. Not for me. I kept my mouth shut. But in the corporate world, gossip moves faster than fire, and someone dropped the right hint to the right HR director. He was married. 3 kids. The fallout was brutal. His wife left him. Took the kids to her sister's place in Vermont. Madison stopped posting for a week straight. Radio silence. That's when I knew her house of cards had collapsed. A week later, she showed up. At my apartment door. Wearing the same leather jacket from the night, I followed her to the hotel. Her makeup was smeared like she'd been crying, or drinking, or both. Noah, she started. I didn't open the door all the way. I made a mistake. I raised a brow. Which one? You'll have to be more specific. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I was lost, okay? Everything was happening so fast. You weren't there for me emotionally. And Cole, he made me feel. Wanted. I cut in. Desired? Special. She nodded, tearful. You think I didn't want you? I said, stepping forward. You think I didn't go to hell and back to be your safe place? I loved you when you had nothing. I was building a life. You were playing dress-up in other men's beds. She looked down. I miss you, she whispered. I let out a low laugh. Not bitter. Not angry. Just sad. You missed the version of me that didn't know who you really are. She didn't have anything to say to that. For once, the queen of excuses was speechless. I could have let her back in. I could have kissed her and lied to myself that she'd change. But I knew better. Madison didn't cheat because she was lost. She cheated because she wanted more. More attention. More power. More adoration. And now? She had less than she started with. She stood there for a moment longer, hoping I'd flinch. Hoping I'd fold. I didn't. I closed the door slowly, gently. Not with anger. With finality. She didn't knock again. The next morning, I changed my number. Blocked her on every app. Erased the photos. Deleted the playlists. But I kept one thing. A small printout, folded in my wallet. That quote she whispered before the party. You're a disgrace. Don't embarrass us. Now I carry it with me every day. As a reminder. The only disgrace was believing her love was real. Months passed. It's strange how life keeps moving even when you feel like you're stuck at the edge of something that broke you. Morning still comes. Bills still show up. People still smile and ask how you're doing like they want a polite answer, not the truth. I didn't date. Didn't party. Didn't go on some cliché find myself road trip across the country. I just existed. One breath after another. Relearning the silence of my own apartment. Rediscovering how my voice sounded when I wasn't arguing, explaining, begging for the bare minimum. I spent time with old friends I had pushed aside for her. Guys like Tyler and Chris, who never liked Madison and weren't shy about saying, told you so, with half a grin and a whiskey in their hands. I appreciated their honesty more than their sympathy. Then one night, I got a call from Madison's dad. He'd been diagnosed with something serious, liver, I think. He didn't get into the details, and I didn't press. I just wanted to say, he said quietly, you were the only man who ever showed up for her. For all of us. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I cut her out of the will, he added. Don't feel sorry for her. Actions have consequences. I thanked him, hung up, and just sat there staring at the floor. My chest felt heavy, but not in the same way it used to. This wasn't heartbreak. It was the weight of closing a chapter. And then came the message that pushed everything over the edge. From a fake account. No profile picture. No followers. Just one message. You should have stayed in your place. I stared at it for a while, then laughed. Madison. Of course it was her. She couldn't help herself. Couldn't let go. Couldn't accept that I'd walked away and never looked back. I didn't respond. I just screenshotted it, filed it away with everything else, and deleted the message. A week later, I was sitting on a park bench, watching a couple walk by. Young, maybe just married. She was holding his hand like it was something precious, and he was looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. I didn't feel envy. I felt clarity, because now I knew what love wasn't. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't mind games and power plays. It wasn't sleeping in someone else's arms while telling me I was the one who wasn't enough. Love is presence. It's consistency. It's honesty, even when it's messy. And Madison? She was the opposite of love. She was a warning. Now, I don't waste time asking why she did what she did. I don't need closure from someone who set fire to everything I built and then cried because she got burned. I live. I work. I breathe. And someday, when love finds me again, I'll recognize it by what it's not. I'll know what betrayal looks like, smells like, lies like. And I'll never let it through my door again. If you're reading this, and you're where I was, trust your gut. When someone tells you, don't embarrass us, what they really mean is, don't expose the truth of what I've become. Expose it anyway. Let them fall. And walk away clean. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't know why I picked it up. I'd trained myself to ignore them. But something, curiosity maybe, made me slide my thumb across the screen. Noah. The voice was quiet, unsure. It was her. Madison, I said flatly. No emotion. Like saying the name of a stranger. She hesitated. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't even know why I'm calling, honestly. Then don't, I replied, ready to hang up. No. Wait. Just give me a minute, she said quickly. Please. I sighed. 1 minute. She let out a breath. I lost everything. My job. Cole ghosted me after his wife took everything in the divorce. My dad's cutting me off. My friends all think I'm the villain in the story, and maybe I am. I needed to talk to someone who actually knew me before all of this. I said nothing. She continued, her voice cracking. I've been thinking about that night, at the party. What I said to you. What I did after. And I keep wondering if I ruined the only good thing I ever had. I stayed quiet, letting the silence choke her for a moment. You did, I finally said. She sniffled. Do you hate me? No, I answered honestly. I don't hate you, Madison. That would still mean you mattered. Another silence. I think I'm broken, she whispered. I didn't argue. You could have destroyed me back then, she added. Gone nuclear. Sent everything to my boss, my family, the media, whoever. But you didn't. You just left. Quietly. Like I wasn't worth the noise. You weren't, I said softly. She cried. Real tears this time. Or maybe they were for herself, not me. I'm sorry, she whispered. You don't get to apologize to make yourself feel better, I told her. That's not how this works. Live with it. Grow from it, if you're capable. But don't expect me to be the soft place you land when everything else falls apart. Then I hung up. And I sat there. Not sad. Not angry. Just calm. It was the first time she hadn't gotten what she wanted from me. A few weeks later, I heard she moved out of the city. Started working some admin job in a town 2 hours away. No more luxury posts. No new selfies. She'd disappeared into a smaller life. Good. That's where she belonged. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding mine. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. I was working on a new housing project with veterans, guys who knew what it meant to fight through things and still show up the next day. We talked, laughed, shared more truth over a beer than Madison ever did in 5 years of marriage. Then one evening, at a fundraiser for the project, I met someone. Her name was Rachel. She was kind, sharp, didn't play games. She looked me in the eyes when she spoke, like what I had to say actually mattered. And when I told her I'd been through a messy divorce, she didn't flinch. She smiled gently and said, Then you already know what you don't want. That's a good start. We didn't rush. We talked. For hours, over coffee, walks, late-night drives. There were no masks. No filters. Just two people, trying again. And for the first time, I felt seen. Really seen. Not as a project. Not as someone to mold or fix or humiliate when things got hard. But as a man. A man who'd been through hell and refused to stay there. I don't know if Rachel is forever. But I know this. She's not Madison. And that alone is enough to let hope in again. I guess what I learned is this. Sometimes the worst thing someone ever does to you is the best thing that ever happens to you. Because it strips away the illusions, burns down the lies, and leaves you standing in the ashes of your old life, finally able to breathe. It was a Sunday morning when it all finally hit me. Not like a slap, but more like a slow breath after holding it for too long. I was standing on my balcony, mug of coffee in one hand, sunrise painting everything gold, and I realized something I hadn't felt in what felt like years. Peace. Not the kind you fake when people ask if you're okay. Not the surface-level calm you wear like a jacket when you're dying inside. I mean real, grounded, unshakable peace. Madison was just gone. Not in the way that means she moved to another town or blocked me on every platform. I mean, gone from me. From my thoughts. From my chest. From my future. She didn't live here anymore. Not in my head. Not in my heart. And the funny part? I didn't even remember the last time I missed her. I think back to that version of me who stood outside the hotel, watching her kiss another man, hoping, begging, that maybe it was a misunderstanding. I want to hug that guy. Tell him it gets better. Tell him that losing her wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Tell him that one day he'd laugh again, love again, breathe without the weight of betrayal pressing on his chest like a brick. I'd tell him that sometimes, when a person calls you a disgrace, it's not because you are. It's because they know, deep down, you're stronger than they'll ever be. You survive. You rise. You walk away without setting the whole world on fire, because you don't need revenge. You won. And if someone's reading this, sitting in the dark with their gut twisted, wondering how the hell they'll survive what just happened to them, here's my advice. Don't chase closure. Don't beg liars to tell you the truth. Don't fight to stay in a story that's already burning down around you. Leave. Rebuild. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll look around your new life and smile. Not because you forgot what they did to you, but because it doesn't matter anymore. You're free.
The phone buzzed relentlessly on the passenger seat, its glow a pulsating reminder of the chaos I had just walked away from. As I turned onto the empty highway, I glanced at the screen. It was Emma, my wife, calling for the 10th time in a row. My chest tightened, but my resolve held firm. Whatever she had to say could wait. Then the words I'd never forget echoed in my head again. "Get back home, you damn bastard," she had screamed earlier, yanking the phone from our daughter Lily's hands. Her tone, venomous and raw, was so unlike the woman I'd married that it felt like a stranger had invaded her body. "I'm not even thinking about coming back to a place where a 304 is screwing some guy in my bed," I had replied with a calmness that surprised even me. "If you want to act like a hurt little boy and refuse to talk about this like rational adults, go ahead," she snapped back. "But know this, from now on, I'll sleep with every man I find in this house." The sheer audacity of her response had left me numb. Was this the same Emma I'd spent a decade with? The mother of my child? The woman I thought I knew better than myself? It had started innocently enough, or so I thought. Subtle changes in her behavior crept in like shadows stretching at dusk. Late-night outings became the norm, always justified with vague excuses. Book club, she'd say, or just catching up with an old friend. Her once warm smiles had turned colder, her laughter no longer bubbling up from shared moments but from a world I wasn't part of. My suspicions grew when I found a receipt in her purse, dinner for two at a restaurant I'd never heard of. My first instinct was denial. Surely, there was a reasonable explanation. But the gnawing feeling in my gut refused to be ignored. I hired a private detective named Carter, a gruff, no-nonsense man who had clearly seen his fair share of human deceit. "Trust your instincts," he'd said during our first meeting. And so, I did. What Carter uncovered was worse than I had ever imagined. Not one lover, not two, but an entire list. Names, dates, and places filled a folder he handed me with grim finality. Emma hadn't just been unfaithful, she had turned infidelity into a sport. As I gripped the steering wheel tighter, flashes of that conversation replayed in my mind. "I have everything I need," I told her earlier when I stormed out. "Go ahead," she had taunted. "You think you're the first man to feel betrayed? You're pathetic." Pathetic. The word had landed like a sucker punch. But in the silence of the car, I found clarity. This wasn't just betrayal, it was war. And I wouldn't let her walk away unscathed. Carter had suggested letting the lawyers handle it, but I had other plans. Every man on that list would face consequences. If you slept with another man's wife, you deserved to feel the weight of your actions. I pulled into a deserted rest stop and parked under the harsh glow of a streetlight. As the car engine hummed its final notes, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emma. It was Carter. "Got something else for you," he said when I picked up. His voice carried the grim satisfaction of a man delivering bad news. You're going to want to see this. Send it, I replied, already dreading what new betrayal awaited me. Moments later, a series of photos landed in my inbox. Emma, laughing with a man at a bar. The same man entering my home hours later. And the final blow, a shot of them tangled in my bed, the sheets I had chosen for our anniversary mockingly visible in the frame. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles whitened. The rage that had simmered below the surface now boiled over. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. It's strange how the mind clings to hope, even when the evidence is piled high against it. As I drove back to the motel that night, I replayed the details in my head, trying to make sense of it all. But no matter how I sliced it, the truth was undeniable. Emma had betrayed me, not just once, but repeatedly, and unapologetically. The morning after Carter sent the photos, I sat in the dingy motel room with a pot of black coffee and the folder he'd given me. I spread its contents across the small table. The list of names stared back at me, each one a grim reminder of her deceit. There was Jack, the guy from her gym. Tim, a coworker I vaguely remembered meeting at a Christmas party. And then, the one that hit the hardest, Brent, my so-called friend. The pictures confirmed everything Carter had said. Emma's expressions in them were sickeningly carefree, laughing, leaning into Brent at the bar, her hand resting on his thigh. How could she so easily discard the years we'd built together? I couldn't stop myself from thinking about Lily. She was only 8, an innocent caught in the crossfire of her parents' imploding marriage. I thought about her handing me the phone last night, her wide eyes confused as Emma snatched it away and hurled insults at me. Was she already picking up on the cracks in our family? The first time I noticed something was wrong was months ago when Emma suddenly started locking her phone. We had always been open about those things. I'd joke about snooping through her messages, and she'd roll her eyes and hand me her phone. But one night, when I jokingly reached for it, she snatched it away. "You've lost your mind if you think I'm letting you snoop through my stuff," she said, her voice sharp and defensive. That was the first domino. After that, I started noticing other things. She'd come home from work meetings smelling of unfamiliar cologne. Her texts were shorter, her attention often elsewhere when we spoke. Then there was the night I found her earrings, the ones I bought her for her birthday, tucked away in the glove compartment of her car. "Oh, I must have forgotten to take them out after the gym," she said with a dismissive laugh. A perfectly rehearsed lie. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to my own insecurities. But then came the day I overheard her whispering on the phone. She was standing in the kitchen, her back to me, speaking in hushed tones. "I can't wait to see you," she said, her voice tinged with excitement I hadn't heard in years. When I asked her about it later, she claimed it was just a friend. "Don't be ridiculous, Jack. You're acting paranoid," she said, brushing me off like a child. Carter's investigation had removed all doubt. He delivered his findings with the efficiency of a seasoned professional, but I could see the pity in his eyes as he laid it all out. "You've got the right to know," he said as he handed me the photos. There was a video too. I hesitated before pressing play, but I needed to see it. In the grainy footage, Emma kissed Brent in a parking lot, their embrace anything but innocent. The timestamp on the video was from 2 days ago, the same night she told me she was stuck working late. My stomach churned as the reality of it all sank in. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the effort she'd put into lying, the ease with which she deceived me. I decided to confront Brent first. I needed to hear it from him, to see if he'd own up to what he'd done. I found him at his garage, the one he'd always bragged about. As I pulled in, he greeted me with that fake, toothy grin of his, the one I now knew hid his true nature. "Jack. Long time no see," he said, wiping grease off his hands. I got straight to the point. "How long have you been screwing my wife?" The grin disappeared, replaced by a look of panic. "What are you talking about?" don't play dumb. I've got proof. Pictures, videos. You think you can mess around with Emma and walk away clean? He stammered, his excuses pitiful. It wasn't like that, man. She said things were over between you two. I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen? My voice rose, and I stepped closer. You're a coward, Brent. You smiled in my face while sneaking around with her behind my back. Before I knew it, my fist connected with his jaw. He staggered back, holding his face, but I didn't stop. The rage boiled over, years of trust and friendship dissolving into the dust of his workshop floor. When I got back to the motel that evening, Carter called again. There's more you need to know, he said. What now? I asked, my voice heavy with exhaustion. Emma's not just cheating. She's been funneling money from your joint account. Thousands, Jack. She's been spending it on these guys, trips, gifts, you name it. My heart sank. It wasn't just my marriage she'd destroyed, it was my future. I stared out the motel window that night, the city lights blurring as tears welled up in my eyes. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal, the lies, or the fact that I had ignored the signs for so long. I swore to myself that I wouldn't let her get away with it. Not Emma, not Brent, not any of them. If they thought they could destroy my life without consequences, they were about to learn otherwise. The next morning, I drove back to the house I had once called home. I parked a block away, steeling myself for what was about to happen. The weight of the evidence in my bag felt like a physical burden, pressing down on me with each step I took toward the door. I knew Emma would be there, her car was in the driveway. When I opened the front door, the smell of freshly brewed coffee greeted me, a cruel reminder of normalcy in a situation that was anything but. Emma stood in the kitchen, her back to me, humming as if everything were fine. Jack, she called without turning. You're back early. Lily's at school. I slammed the door shut, cutting her off mid-sentence. She turned, startled by the sound, her face shifting from confusion to annoyance when she saw me. What's with the theatrics? She asked, leaning casually against the counter. Her calm demeanor made my blood boil. I dropped the folder onto the kitchen island with a thud. You tell me, Emma, I said, my voice ice cold. She glanced at the folder, her expression flickering for a split second before she masked it with indifference. What's this? Proof, I replied. Of your affairs. Of your lies. Of everything you've been doing behind my back. Her eyes narrowed as she crossed her arms. So, what? You've been spying on me? I let out a bitter laugh. Spying? No, Emma. I've been trying to find out why the woman I married turned into a stranger who can't even look me in the eye anymore. She rolled her eyes and opened the folder, flipping through the photos and documents. When she got to the list of names, she smirked. Is this supposed to shock me? You think I don't know what's in here? Her lack of remorse was like gasoline on a fire. You don't even care, do you? I shouted, my voice cracking with anger. You've been sleeping with other men in our bed, Emma. You've been stealing from me, from Lily. How can you stand there and act like this doesn't matter? It doesn't, she snapped, slamming the folder shut. You're the one who let our marriage fall apart, Jack. You ignored me for years, made me feel invisible. Don't act like this is all on me. Oh, so this is my fault now? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You're blaming me for your decision to betray me, to betray us? Yes, she said bluntly. Because you're a coward who doesn't know how to face reality. You want to play the victim? Fine. But don't expect me to feel guilty for finding happiness somewhere else. The room fell silent except for the sound of my ragged breathing. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Happiness? That's what she called this? I pulled out my phone and opened the video Carter had sent me. I hit play and held the screen up to her face. Happiness, huh? Was this what happiness looked like 2 nights ago when you were with Brent in our bed? Her smug expression faltered as the video played. She tried to grab the phone, but I pulled it away. Don't, I growled. You don't get to run from this. Her face twisted into a sneer. You're pathetic, Jack. Spying on me like some obsessed stalker. Do you think this makes you look strong? It makes you look desperate. Desperate? I echoed, laughing bitterly. You want to talk about desperate? You've been lying, cheating, and stealing, Emma. And now you're standing here, trying to gaslight me into thinking this is somehow my fault. She crossed her arms again, her tone turning icy. So what now, Jack? Are you going to cry about it? Are you going to pack your bags and run off to some cheap motel? Or are you actually going to be a man and have a real conversation? I stared at her, incredulous. A real conversation? Like the ones you've been having with Brent? Or Tim? Or Jack from the gym? Her eyes flashed with anger. Don't you dare throw their names at me like that, she hissed. You have no idea what I've been through, Jack. None. And whose fault is that? I shot back. I was here, Emma. I was always here. You're the one who chose to check out. The tension in the room was suffocating. She glared at me, her face a mixture of anger and defiance. Fine, she said finally. If you want to end this, then end it. But don't you dare think for a second that you're the victim here. You're just as guilty as I am. Her words stung, but I refused to let them break me. I'll take that under consideration, I said coolly. Right after I talk to the lawyer. Her eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her armor. You wouldn't, she said, her voice wavering. Watch me, I replied. As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me. You think this makes you better than me, she spat. Dragging lawyers into this? Ruining Lily's life because you can't handle the truth? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. You already ruined Lily's life, Emma. You just didn't care enough to notice. With that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. My heart felt heavy, but my resolve was stronger than ever. I wasn't just going to let her destroy everything I'd worked for. If she wanted a war, she'd get one. When I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, the air felt different, thicker, heavier, like I was suffocating under the weight of my own thoughts. I leaned against my car, my mind racing. My marriage, my home, my life, they all felt like fragile facades shattered by Emma's lies. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours. The city blurred past me, but I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to escape the suffocating reality of what had just happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face, smug, unapologetic, and cruel. Her words echoed in my head, "You're just as guilty as I am." Guilty? For what? Working long hours to provide for her and Lily? Trusting her when she said she was going to yoga class or work events? Guilty for believing in us, even when the signs were screaming at me to wake up? My knuckles tightened on the steering wheel as a wave of anger surged through me. I pulled over to the side of the road, unable to drive any further. My hands were shaking, and my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. That night, back in the motel room, the emotions hit me like a freight train. I wasn't just angry, I was devastated. I had built my life around Emma and Lily, around the idea of a family. And now it was gone. I thought about Lily, her small voice on the phone as she called me Daddy. She didn't deserve this. None of this was her fault, and yet she would be the one to suffer the most. I pictured her sitting in her room, wondering why her dad was suddenly gone, why her parents were fighting. The guilt hit me like a punch to the gut. I had to be strong for her, but how could I when I felt like my entire world had crumbled? I stared at my phone, debating whether to call someone, anyone, just to get the poison out of my head. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped on Ryan's name. My brother had always been the one person I could rely on. When he picked up, his voice was groggy. "Jack? It's late. What's going on?" I didn't even know where to start. "She's been cheating on me, Ryan," I blurted out. "Emma. 4 months. Maybe years. With multiple guys." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, "Jack, are you serious? Emma?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah. The perfect wife, right? Turns out she's been screwing around behind my back while I've been busting my ass to give her and Lily a good life." Ryan cursed under his breath. "What are you going to do?" I confronted her, I said, my voice shaking. She didn't even deny it. She acted like I was the one who ruined everything. Like this is all my fault. "She's manipulating you," Ryan said firmly. "Don't let her get in your head, Jack. You've done nothing wrong." Hearing those words felt like a lifeline. For the first time all day, I felt a flicker of clarity. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. The anger was still there, burning quietly beneath the surface, but it was tempered by a determination to take control of the situation. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. I explained everything: the infidelity, the money she'd stolen, the evidence Carter had gathered. The lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Diane, didn't sugarcoat things. "This is going to get messy," she warned. "But with the evidence you have, you're in a strong position. We'll file for divorce, and we'll fight for custody of your daughter. Are you prepared for that?" "Whatever it takes," I said. Later that day, I met with Carter again. This time, it wasn't just about gathering evidence, it was about planning my next move. "I want to know everything," I told him. "Every guy she's been with, every dollar she's spent. I want her to feel the weight of what she's done." Carter nodded, his expression serious. "I'll keep digging. But Jack, be careful. Revenge can be a slippery slope." "I'm not looking for revenge," I said, though the fire in my chest told me otherwise. "I just want justice." That evening, I drove past the house again. The lights were on, and through the window, I saw Emma sitting at the dining table, laughing on the phone like nothing had happened. The sight made my blood boil. How could she be so carefree, so unaffected, after everything she'd done? I parked down the street and sat there for a while, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to storm in and demand answers, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I knew it wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I sent her a text: "We'll talk through our lawyers from now on. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow." Her response came almost instantly: "Do whatever you want. Just don't expect me to make it easy for you." Typical Emma. Always needing the last word. Back at the motel, I started packing my things. I couldn't stay there forever, it was time to start rebuilding my life. As I folded my clothes into a suitcase, I thought about what Ryan had said: "Don't let her get in your head." Easier said than done, but I knew he was right. Emma had taken so much from me already: my trust, my dignity, my sense of security. I wouldn't let her take my future too. This wasn't the end for me. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would take back control of my life. The next day began with a weighty resolve. I wasn't going to let Emma's betrayal define me or my future. I walked into Diane's office, armed with every piece of evidence Carter had gathered, ready to start the battle that would inevitably change the course of my life. Diane, sharp and no-nonsense, wasted no time. "We're going to file for divorce immediately," she said, flipping through the files I handed over. "With this level of evidence, we can also pursue primary custody of your daughter. But be prepared, Emma's going to fight back. People like her don't go down quietly. Her words were both reassuring and sobering. What about the money she took? I asked. We'll subpoena her financial records, Diane replied. If she used joint funds to finance her affairs, we can bring that to the court's attention. Every dime she's stolen can be accounted for, and she'll have to answer for it. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. I left Diane's office more determined than ever, but also fully aware that the road ahead would be long and grueling. Later that afternoon, I picked Lily up from school. She ran toward me with her backpack bouncing behind her, her face lighting up when she saw me. Daddy! I knelt down and hugged her tightly, holding on longer than usual. Hey, sweetheart. How was school? Good. We painted pictures in art class. Mine is of a rainbow. I'll show you when we get home. The word home hit me like a punch to the gut. Lily didn't know yet that her world was about to change. I couldn't let her feel the weight of this mess. She deserved to hold on to her innocence for as long as possible. Can we go get ice cream? She asked, her eyes sparkling. Of course we can, I said, forcing a smile. Sitting across from Lily at the ice cream parlor, I watched her chatter away about her day, her friends, and her rainbow painting. Her joy was infectious, momentarily lifting the heavy cloud that had been hanging over me. But then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw Emma's name. Call me. We need to talk. I ignored the message and focused on Lily, savoring the simple pleasure of being with her. For now, Emma could wait. That evening, back at the motel, Emma's messages became more persistent. You can't just cut me out like this. We need to discuss Lily's future. Answer me, Jack. Eventually, my phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen, and despite every fiber of my being wanting to let it go to voicemail, I picked up. What do you want, Emma? I asked, my tone cold. You're really going through with this? She snapped. A divorce? Lawyers? Do you have any idea what this will do to Lily? Don't you dare pretend to care about Lily now, I said, my voice low and steady. You didn't think about her when you were screwing other men in our home. Her silence was deafening. Then, she lashed out. You're such a self-righteous bastard, Jack. Acting like you're some perfect husband. You're just bitter because I found happiness somewhere else. Happiness? I repeated, my anger boiling over. Is that what you call sneaking around and lying to your husband and daughter? If that's your idea of happiness, Emma, you can keep it. You're not going to win this, she spat. I'll fight you every step of the way. Do whatever you need to do, I replied. But this ends now. I'm done letting you control the narrative. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings with Diane, gathering documents, and preparing for the legal battle ahead. At the same time, I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Lily. One evening, as I was helping her with her homework, she asked, Daddy, why aren't you staying at home anymore? The question froze me. How could I explain this to a 6-year-old without shattering her world? I'm just staying somewhere else for a little while, I said gently. But I'm still here for you, always. She seemed to accept the answer, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. It broke my heart. Meanwhile, Emma ramped up her attempts to control the situation. She started posting on social media, painting herself as the victim of a cold, distant husband who had abandoned his family. Mutual friends reached out, some offering support, others questioning my actions. Jack, what's going on? Ryan asked during a phone call. Emma's making it sound like you're the one who ruined things. She's lying, I said bluntly. She's trying to save face because she knows the truth is ugly. Well, don't let her get to you, Ryan said. People who know you will see through her crap. As the court date approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. Diane had been thorough, building a solid case against Emma. But I knew that facing her in court would be brutal. The night before the hearing, I sat alone in the motel room, going over everything in my head. The betrayal, the confrontation, the moments of doubt and anger, it all felt surreal. But through the haze of emotions, one thought stood out: I was doing this for Lily. She deserved better than the chaos Emma had created. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse with my head held high. Emma was already there, dressed to the nines, her expression cold and defiant. As the proceedings began, I felt a strange sense of calm. This wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about reclaiming my life. Walking into the courtroom felt like stepping onto a battlefield. The air was charged with tension, every whispered conversation between attorneys and clients like the hushed strategy of opposing armies. I caught sight of Emma seated at her table, flanked by her high-priced lawyer. She looked composed, confident even, as though she truly believed she could twist this mess in her favor. The sight ignited a fire in me. I wasn't here for her anymore, I was here for Lily and for myself. The damage Emma had done would take years to heal, but I wouldn't let her drag Lily down with her. Diane was a force of nature, her sharp voice slicing through the courtroom as she presented the evidence Carter had uncovered. Photos, videos, financial statements, it was all laid bare. Your Honor, Diane began, her tone resolute, we will demonstrate that Mrs. Emma Carter not only engaged in extramarital affairs but also misused joint funds to facilitate these liaisons, all while neglecting her responsibilities as a spouse and mother. Emma's lawyer objected to the phrasing, but the judge allowed Diane to proceed. The evidence was damning. Photos of Emma with her various lovers at restaurants, hotels, and even in our home flashed on a screen. Receipts followed, showing charges on our joint account that corresponded to these rendezvous. I could see the judge's expression harden as each piece of evidence stacked up against Emma. When it was Emma's turn to take the stand, her demeanor shifted. She put on an air of vulnerability, painting herself as a woman trapped in a loveless marriage. Jack was never around, she said, her voice trembling just enough to seem believable. He worked late every night, and when he was home, he barely spoke to me. I felt invisible, unwanted. I clenched my fists under the table, biting my tongue to keep from shouting. Diane had warned me to let her handle it, and I trusted her. Did you ever attempt to address these concerns with your husband? Emma's lawyer asked, playing into her narrative. I tried, Emma lied, dabbing at imaginary tears. But he would just brush me off. He made me feel like I didn't matter. When Diane cross-examined her, the charade began to unravel. Mrs. Carter, are we to believe that your response to feeling invisible was to spend thousands of dollars from your joint account on secret trips and expensive dinners with other men? Diane's tone was ice-cold. Emma hesitated, her confidence cracking. I didn't intend for things to get so out of hand. But they did, Diane pressed. And in doing so, you not only betrayed your husband but also compromised the financial stability of your family. Is that correct? Emma's lawyer objected again, but the damage was done. The courtroom could see through her act. When I took the stand, I didn't focus on Emma's betrayal. Instead, I spoke about Lily, how much I loved her, how I wanted to provide her with a stable, loving environment. Lily is my world, I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. She deserves parents who put her needs first. I'm here today because I want to give her that stability, to protect her from the chaos Emma has brought into our lives. Diane followed up with questions that painted me as the devoted father I was, emphasizing the sacrifices I had made to provide for my family. Emma's lawyer tried to poke holes in my testimony, but the evidence spoke louder than any cross-examination could. After hours of back-and-forth arguments, the judge finally delivered his decision. He granted me primary custody of Lily, citing Emma's reckless behavior and poor judgment as significant factors. Emma's reaction was explosive. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, standing up so quickly her chair toppled over. "You're taking my daughter away from me because of a few mistakes?" The judge gave her a stern look. "Mrs. Carter, I suggest you compose yourself. My decision is final." She stormed out of the courtroom, leaving her lawyer scrambling to gather their things. I watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't a victory, it was just the end of a battle I never wanted to fight. Outside the courthouse, Diane patted me on the shoulder. "You did well, Jack. Now it's time to focus on rebuilding." I nodded, the weight of the day finally hitting me. "Thank you, Diane. For everything." As I walked to my car, I saw Ryan waiting for me. He grinned and pulled me into a bear hug. "You did it, man," he said. "Lily's going to be okay." For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile creep onto my face. "Yeah," I said. "She is." That night, back at the motel, I tucked Lily into bed. She clung to her stuffed bunny, her eyes heavy with sleep. "Are we going to live here forever, Daddy?" she asked, her voice small and tired. "No, sweetheart," I said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "This is just temporary. I'm going to find us a new home, a place where we can start fresh." She nodded, already drifting off. As I sat by her side, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. Emma's betrayal had torn my world apart, but it had also forced me to see what truly mattered. Lily was my anchor, my reason to keep going. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain: we would be okay. The weeks following the courtroom victory felt like a fragile calm after a devastating storm. There was relief, yes, but also an underlying tension. Emma was unpredictable, and while the judge's decision had granted me primary custody of Lily, I knew this wasn't over. I moved into a modest two-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, a far cry from the suburban home I had built with Emma. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, safe, and most importantly, it was ours. Lily was hesitant at first, clutching her stuffed bunny as we unpacked. "Is Mommy going to live here too?" she asked, her small voice cutting through the silence. I knelt down to her level, choosing my words carefully. "No, sweetheart. Mommy has her own place now. But this is our home, and I promise, it's going to be a happy one." She nodded slowly, though I could see the confusion in her eyes. I knew this wasn't something a 6-year-old could fully comprehend, but I hoped my reassurance would help her feel safe. Emma, however, didn't waste any time causing trouble. A few days after we moved in, I got a series of texts from her. "You're poisoning Lily against me. She's my daughter too, Jack. Don't forget that. You'll regret trying to keep her away from me." I didn't respond. Engaging with her would only fuel her fire, and I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. Instead, I forwarded the messages to Diane, who advised me to document everything in case Emma tried to make good on her threats. One evening, as Lily and I were settling into our new routine, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I approached cautiously. Peering through the peephole, I saw Emma standing on the other side, her arms crossed and her face set in a mask of irritation. I opened the door just enough to speak through the crack. "What are you doing here?" "I want to see Lily," she snapped, her tone sharp. "You can't keep her from me." "This isn't your night," I said firmly. The custody agreement was clear: Emma had visitation rights, but only on specified days. "I'm her mother, Jack," she hissed, stepping closer. "You can't just erase me from her life." "I'm not erasing you," I said, keeping my voice level for Lily's sake. "But you don't get to show up unannounced and disrupt her routine." Emma glared at me, her eyes blazing with fury. "You're going to pay for this," she said before turning on her heel and storming off. The next morning, I got a call from Diane. Emma filed a motion to amend the custody arrangement, she said. She's claiming you're alienating her from Lily. I felt my stomach drop. Can she do that? She can try, Diane replied. But with the evidence we have, I'm confident the judge will see through her claims. Just stay calm and stick to the agreement. The thought of another legal battle was exhausting, but I wasn't about to back down. Emma's manipulation had gone unchecked for too long, and I wasn't going to let her weaponize Lily against me. Meanwhile, I focused on building a new normal for Lily and me. Our mornings were filled with the rush of getting ready for school, packing lunches, and sharing quick hugs before she hopped out of the car. Evenings became our time to unwind, reading stories, watching movies, and talking about her day. One night, as we were cuddled up on the couch, she turned to me and said, "I like it here, Daddy. It feels like home." Her words brought tears to my eyes. For all the chaos Emma had caused, this moment reminded me why I was fighting so hard. Emma's next move came swiftly. A week before the court hearing for her motion, I got a call from Lily's school. "Mr. Carter, this is Principal Harris," the voice on the other end said. "There was an incident today involving your ex-wife." My heart raced. What happened? She showed up during recess and tried to take Lily off school grounds. Fortunately, one of the teachers intervened and stopped her. I felt a surge of anger and fear. "Is Lily okay?" "She's shaken but unharmed," the principal assured me. "We've already contacted the authorities and filed a report. Moving forward, we'll require written consent from you before allowing anyone other than you to pick her up." I thanked him and hung up, my hands trembling. Emma's recklessness had reached a new level, and it was clear she was spiraling out of control. At the next court hearing, Diane presented the school's incident report as further evidence of Emma's instability. "Your Honor," Diane said, "this behavior demonstrates a blatant disregard for the custody agreement and the well-being of the child. We request that Mrs. Carter's visitation rights be suspended until she completes a psychological evaluation." Emma's lawyer tried to argue that the incident was a misunderstanding, but the judge wasn't swayed. He ordered Emma to undergo counseling and limited her contact with Lily to supervised visits. As the gavel came down, I felt a wave of relief. For the first time, it seemed like the system was truly protecting Lily. That evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "Is Mommy mad at me?" "No, sweetheart," I said, stroking her hair. "Mommy just needs some time to work on a few things. But she loves you very much, and so do I." She nodded, her trust in me unwavering. As she drifted off to sleep, I sat by her side, vowing to give her the life she deserved, a life free from the chaos Emma had created. Life was finally settling into a rhythm. The storms Emma had unleashed seemed to be dissipating. Lily was thriving in her new school, laughing more, and asking fewer questions about her mom. For the first time in what felt like forever, I dared to exhale. But peace has a way of making you forget how quickly chaos can strike. It started with a knock on the door late one evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened it, there stood Emma. She looked disheveled, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes bloodshot. A faint smell of alcohol clung to her. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice laced with irritation. She pushed past me into the apartment, ignoring my question entirely. "We need to talk," she slurred. "Emma, it's late. Lily's asleep. You can't just—" "I don't care about your rules, Jack," she snapped, spinning to face me. "I've had enough of you acting like you're some perfect father while painting me as the villain. Emma, you made your choices. This isn't about me painting you as anything, it's about what's best for Lily." Her laugh was hollow, almost manic. "Oh, save the sanctimony. You think you're better than me? You're just as much of a failure as I am." I crossed my arms, unwilling to let her bait me. If you came here to fight, you can leave. Now. But then her expression shifted. Her anger melted into something that almost resembled vulnerability. She sank onto the couch, her shoulders slumping. "I've lost everything, Jack," she said quietly, tears streaming down her face. "The men, the money, the house, none of it means anything anymore. I thought I could control it all, but now I don't even know who I am." For a moment, I was speechless. This wasn't the Emma I knew, the fiery, manipulative woman who always had a plan. This was someone broken, grasping at the shards of a life she'd shattered. "I don't know what you want me to say," I admitted. She looked up at me, desperation etched into her features. "I want another chance. For us. For our family." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. A part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. After everything she'd done, she thought she could waltz back into my life and rewrite the narrative? "No," I said, my voice firm. "You don't get to come here and ask for forgiveness like it's that simple. Lily and I are finally finding our footing, and I won't let you pull us back into the mess you created." Her face crumpled, but before she could respond, another sound broke through the tension, a loud crash from Lily's room. We both froze. Then I bolted toward her door, Emma stumbling after me. When I pushed the door open, my heart stopped. Lily's bed was empty, the window wide open. A rope ladder dangled from the sill, swaying in the breeze. "Lily!" I shouted, leaning out the window. There was no sign of her. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. What's happening?" I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking. As I explained the situation to the operator, a horrifying realization hit me: this wasn't random. Someone had planned this. The police arrived within minutes, swarming the apartment. Officers questioned me and Emma separately, trying to piece together what had happened. Emma's presence only complicated matters, her emotional state making her an unreliable witness. Then, one of the officers found something, an envelope taped to the underside of Lily's bed. Inside was a note written in crude, blocky letters. "You took her from me. Now I'll take her from you." My blood ran cold. I handed the note to the officer, my mind racing. There was only one person who could have written this: Brian, one of Emma's former lovers. He had always been volatile, prone to jealousy and possessiveness. "Do you know who this is from?" the officer asked. I nodded, my jaw clenched. "Brian. He's dangerous, and he's obsessed with Emma." Emma's face went pale. I haven't seen him in months," she stammered. The officer didn't seem convinced. "We'll issue an alert and start tracking him immediately." Hours turned into an agonizing blur as the search for Lily unfolded. Every minute felt like an eternity, the fear gnawing at me like a relentless beast. Emma was inconsolable, pacing the room and muttering to herself. Then, just as dawn began to break, my phone rang. It was the police. "We found her," the officer said. "She's safe." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I barely heard the details as the officer explained that they had intercepted Brian at a highway rest stop, thanks to a tip from a truck driver who had recognized Lily from the Amber Alert. When I arrived at the station to pick her up, I saw her sitting in a small room, clutching her stuffed bunny. She looked up as I walked in, her face lighting up. "Daddy," she cried, running into my arms. I held her tightly, my heart finally beginning to slow. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're safe now." Emma arrived moments later, her face a mix of relief and guilt. She tried to hug Lily, but Lily clung to me, burying her face in my shoulder. In the days that followed, I filed for a restraining order against Brian and worked with the police to ensure he faced charges for what he'd done. But this incident was the final nail in the coffin for Emma's involvement in Lily's life. The court stripped her of unsupervised visitation, and for the first time, I felt like we could truly move forward. As for me, I learned something unexpected from this ordeal. Life doesn't always tie up neatly. Pain doesn't simply vanish, and trust isn't easily rebuilt. But amid the chaos, I found strength I didn't know I had, a fierce, unyielding love for my daughter and an unwavering determination to protect her at all costs. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And together, Lily and I would write the next chapter on our own terms.